Welcome back, ladies, from our long summer break. We're going to start classes again now in the fall, the third Saturday of each month, unless we take a break for a holiday. This month we're going to do top zip bags. You can see the M&M bag here, and you can see the zippers completely on the top. We did bags in our last class in the spring, designed by Kimberbell, but they were a front zip. So the zipper was down here, and then there was a section above and this section below the zipper. These are completely on the zippers on the top. So I feel they're just a little bit easier to do. I know there's quite a few beginners in class. We are going to do, or you're going to get patterns for the vinyl candy, cookie, snack bags, and I'll show you how to do that in a different video. And then you also will get multiple bags made out of just fabric where you can put a decorative fill over the front, or you can do them plain, however you want. I have digitized these designs for you. There's lots of designers out there that do bags, many different kinds of bags. And I just thought it would be fun if we continued from the spring and do a few more bags. So I will give you instructions, written instructions on exactly what's in your on your USB stick in the different folders. You're also going to get a folder that has probably about 20 designs that you can use just on square quilt blocks. And basically it's just a decorative fill for those. And that is what this is on the front of the M&M bag, is a decorative fill that was done in my PE design software. I recently had to get a new software because the Janome MBX software is not compatible with the version of Windows that I have now. So it's a little bit of a learning curve trying to learn new software and then figure out this iPad and the filming. I definitely am a PC user and always have been, so I'm not real familiar with the iPad. So if you see me reaching in and out, I apologize. Like I said, I can't see when the machine is filming. So first thing we're going to do is one of the bags made out of fabric. And you can see I've hooped my stabilizer. I like to use a soft and sheer stabilizer. Some designers call for a tearaway. I don't like a tearaway because it's a lot stiffer than the soft and sheer. And when I have you prep your fabric, you can make the front and the back different. On this bag, this is the front and this is the back. And this is the lining fabric. So, or you can do them all the same. And so on my bags, what I do is I spray all of my fabric with Best Press, usually. I do have a couple different brands, but I do like Best Press. So that gives it a nice, firm, stiff feeling. Then after I've done that, I iron SF 101 on the back of the front and the back pieces. I do not iron anything on the lining pieces because there should be enough, this should be enough firmness to keep the bag pretty stable. Plus, this particular bag is going to have an overall design on the front, which also will make it a little bit more stable. And then I'm going to put a thin layer of batting underneath the front and the back layers right before I stipple it. So this is a very lightweight batting. This is called Stable Bat by Basel, but you can use fleece. It can be a fusible fleece. Doesn't have to be fusible because you're not going to press it on the front. You're just going to spray it and put it in there. Or you could probably even use felt. I wouldn't suggest using a real lofty batting because if it gets too puffy, first of all, your machine might not, if your foot isn't adjustable, then as it bypasses the zipper, and if it's real thick inside there, it might hit, your foot might hit the zipper pull. So again, if you're going to use a batting, try to use even an 80-20 cotton would probably work. Anything that's not lofty. Okay, so let's get started. I have attached the hoop to the machine, and I have a very small sewing room with an L-shaped desk, and because on the Janome Membercraft 12,000, the arm comes off from the back of the machine, I have to make sure it's not going to hit the wall. So this normally is not the position that I have the machine sitting when I sew with, I do embroidery with it, but because of the purpose of the video, and I have to have the camera up on my desk also, otherwise I'm always reaching in front of the camera. This way you only see my head pop in once in a while. So anyway, hopefully you'll be able to see it okay, and we'll get started. Now, the very first thing that's going to stitch is going to be the outline. I already have the design in the computer, or in the machine, and in the correct folder, because it's a Janome machine. Most of on the Janome machines, except for the 15,000 and maybe the brand new one, you can put it directly on the USB stick. Otherwise, it has to go in a special folder, and usually that folder is the MBF folder. So the first part of the design, like I said, is going to, the first section is going to sew directly onto the stabilizer. And once in a while, when I do have multiple embroidery machines, and not just this one, but once in a while when I'm stitching directly onto the stabilizer, it doesn't necessarily like to catch the stitches or catch the bobbin thread. I have no idea why. I do have a Janome ballpoint needle in there, and the reason why is because it's a size 14 and it creates a little bit bigger hole. And when you do these bags, a lot of times the needle goes in the same spot over and over, multiple times around. And on this design, it says there are 10 different colors and it will take 22 minutes. But there are not 10 different colors. You can sew the whole design in the same color unless I tell you different. The only reason why all those thread stops are in there, or thread color changes are in there, is so the machine will stop, so I can add fabric and add the zipper and do all the things that have to be done. The other thing is, I have my machine running right now at 500 stitches per minute. I do not ever run it at top speed. Between 500 and 600 usually is what I run my embroidery machines at. Okay, we got the first stop. So I'm going to unhoop the machine, for the hoop from the machine. I'm not going to take the project out of the hoop, and then I'll be back. Okay, I've just unhooked the hoop because it's way back there, and for me to reach back there and unhook it, I have to actually get my body in front of the camera, and you wouldn't be able to see anything anyway. So this very first stitch is the outline of the whole bag, and each bag size that I have made for you, and there are multiple sizes, have the dimensions of the bag, and then it has the dimensions, the cutting dimensions of the fabric that you need to cut, because obviously the fabric has to go outside the stitching areas so that when you fold it over, it goes beyond this bottom line there. And the other thing is with a zipper, as you can see, this section right here, I believe, is about a 10-inch. This blue is long enough, so I probably will use it. Otherwise, I have a real long white zipper, but this is definitely long enough. You want your zipper to extend at least an inch on each side of the stitching area. You want to keep your zipper pull and this tab at the end of the zipper out of the way of the needle, because I guarantee you it will break your needle. So like I said, the first outline is just the whole outline of the bag, and then these lines right here are for the placement of the zipper. You're going to place the zipper directly onto the stabilizer. So what I like to do is that bottom line that I've made is where the edge of the zipper goes. And if you kind of lift this back, I don't have it exactly right, but the middle of the zipper goes along this little line right here in the center. And the top of the zipper will go above the top of the bag a little bit. If I've done it right, it should stitch about right here where there's a little bit of a indentation on this zipper. So I'm going to take some sewable paper tape. I've got a couple different brands. I'm not sure which brand I have in my little tape machine. So that one's not long enough. I'll get a different one here. I'm going to tape my zipper on each end here. Believe me, this is not handy, the angle that I have this machine at. But I really don't have any place else to film, so this will have to do. Looks like I've got that in there pretty good. I'll put the hoop back in the machine. And then I'm going to stitch the next step, which will actually tack that zipper down. The other thing I should mention is the embroidery foot on this machine is adjustable up and down. Not all machines can stitch these bags, and the reason why is because once I open up that zipper before I do the last step, that foot gets pretty close to the edge of the zipper, and when it has to go by the zipper pull, sometimes it hits it. And I have my zipper, or my embroidery foot height raised right now. So like I said, if this is your first time ever doing bags, you need to pay attention when I get to the point of where that foot is going to bypass that zipper pull, which I will mention at that time. And hopefully it'll bypass it without giving you any problems. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the hoop back out of the machine again, and I'm going to flip the hoop over. I'm not going to take anything out of the hoop. I'm just going to flip the hoop over, and I'm going to trim this area right here where I stitched. I'm going to trim that stabilizer away, and the reason why is if I don't trim that away, when I do have to open that zipper up, that stabilizer is going to be there, and you'll have a hard time doing it after the bag is all together. And again, that will be in your written instructions that I'm going to give you also, to remove this, and make sure when you remove it, you don't cut along this stitch line, or what you're doing is you're cutting your stitches out. So just double check and make sure you've cut the right area out. So the next step is going to be a line that's going to attach the lining and the front of the bag. So this is the front of my bag, and this is one of my lining pieces. So in this section, I have to put a piece of fabric on the front and the back of this hoop. So I'm going to flip my hoop back over. And because when this is all finished, the lining needs to be like this. So think to yourself, you're going to stitch it, for the machine to stitch it, it's going to stitch right along here. You have to put the piece of fabric right side down and just a little bit below that line. and make sure that the edges of your fabric are beyond this placement line, because that's how big the bag is going to be when you get all done. So I'm going to take some more tape, and I don't suggest using blue painter's tape because it will roll. I suggest investing in some tape that is sewable. If your needle happens to go over the top of it, that means it just, the stickiness from the tape won't gum up your needle. Now, this tape is reusable. In other words, once I get this off from here, I can stick it on my desk and I can use it again. Okay, I've got that all taped down. I'm going to flip this back over, and I'm going to make sure that stays up there. Hopefully you can see this. I don't have that exactly even. I can see that, but it doesn't really make any difference, because as long as it's, like I said, it's going to stitch right here on this line. So this is the front of my bag. So the same thing. If it's going to end up like this, which means I have to flip it this way in order for it to be in the right position. If I had it the other way, then the seam obviously would be on the outside of the bag, and we don't want that. So I just have to make sure that it's well beyond that line, that stitching line. And I'm going to tape it a little bit again on this side, even though I'm sitting right here. I don't always tape it, but that's not necessarily a good thing, because I've never had my fingers caught in the machine, but I'm sure it would hurt. The machine would keep right on going. I'm going to put one more piece right in the middle here. Okay, I'll hook my machine, or hook the hoop back up to the machine. And I'm going to stitch the next step, which I said we'll tack that front and back, the front piece and the lining piece in place. And if you're going to put your fingers any place, put them like I am, behind the direction that the machine is moving. It's going to the next section that I'm going to sew, and I can't reach through there, so I'm going to have to go over the top. I'm going to take this center piece off, and actually I'm going to take each one of these pieces off, and as you can see, I can stick it on my desk and reuse that. So I am going to take just a little bit of the 505 spray, and I did spray it on there. I am a little bit too close to my machine to be doing that, but I did it anyway because of the filming. Okay, so the next step that's going to stitch is going to be the overall decorative quilting. And I am going to put a piece of the stable bat under there. So I'm going to spray the stable bat just a little bit. In fact, I should have did that before I folded that down. And I'm going to fit that in there. Again, make sure it's beyond the edges of the placement line, and then fold that down. You don't have to iron it, just kind of smooth it out with your hand, and it should stay there because, well, we had a little bit of spray on there. Normally I don't spray this close to my machine either. Okay, so that's all smoothed down, and maybe I'll take a couple pieces of those tape, or a couple pieces of the tape that I had from before, and I'm just gonna place it on each side. Now I'm going to put it back in the machine, and I'm going to stitch the next step. And if you notice, I only folded the front down. My back lining piece is still fold it up. Make sure it stays up there. You don't want, I suppose you could fold it down, but then you'd have your stitches inside the bag on the lining piece. And if you look inside most purchased handbags, you don't see, if it's got any kind of stitch on the outside, you don't see that stitch. So the next thing that is going to sew is going to be my decorative stitch. So that actually will take probably, I would guess maybe 10 minutes. You can see it's still stitching, and you can tell here it's a nice smooth stitch, and it's going back and forth in the same lines that it has already stitched, and that's because it's a continuous design. And like I said, I have the size 14 ballpoint needle in there because the size 14 will create a little bit bigger hole, which allows it to go back into those same holes without creating little loops on the top. So most of the time when I do embroidery, I use a gold titanium needle in a size 11 or a 12. But when I do the bags, because there's so many layers, and because it goes over the stitching so many times, I always put a size 14 needle in there. And I do have a sample to show you in class. I did one whole decorative quilt block for you with a size 12 needle, and it has multiple loops on the top. Then I did the same block on my big PR machine, which has 6 needles, and there's no loops with the ballpoint needle. So that's just a little tip that you might keep in mind if you're getting loops on the top of your design. It's still stitching, but I wanted to tell you that on your USB sticks, the designs that I put on there for you, I believe there's about 15 different size, different patterns in different sized hoops. Now, because I did this in the Brother software, obviously I had to use the Brother hoop sizes. I am stitching this on my Janome machine, and it doesn't make any difference. The bag is a 6x10. I don't have a 6x10 hoop for this machine, so I've just used the next size up hoop, which in this case is my GR hoop. I have converted all of the PES designs to the VP3 and the JEF format. I believe that's the 3 machines that are available in the class, that people have in our class. It's kind of half and half, and we do have one person that has a Viking, and that reads a VP3 format. So in each one of the separate folders that I've created for you, which is the candy bags, and then these deco bags, and the quilt blocks, they will come in all the different formats and all the different sizes. Just remember, if it doesn't match the size of a hoop that you have, use your next largest size hoop available. And if there's a pattern that you really like and it doesn't come in the size that you want to make, just shoot me an email. You'll all have my email address or my phone number. Send me a text message, and I can quick make that design for you in the size that you want. Now, please don't send me a list of 15 different sizes that you want. I'm talking just a few. I would be more than happy to do that for you, and obviously if I'm busy, you'll have to wait until I can get at it, which usually would be within a couple hours or maybe a day. Don't expect to sit down to your machine and send me a message and have your design within 5 minutes. Okay, I'm going to shut the camera off again and wait until it finishes. The design is almost finished, and as you can see, it's doing an outline stitch around the whole outside, which is okay on the bag, but if you're going to just use the decorative stitch on a quilt block, I'm not real fond of it putting that outline stitch on there. There's no way I can make the program not put that stitch on, that outline stitch. So pretty much when you're doing a quilt block, you have to make sure the design is the size, the finished size of the block that you want. And then when you go to stitch your blocks together, you can hide, actually it's kind of a guideline for you to stitch along. You can hide that stitch line as your seam line. And then your 1/4 inch allowance would be outside here. Okay, now actually the next step that it's going to stitch is it's going to stitch a line right across here. And I'm going to skip over that line. In fact, I'll probably delete it out of this particular pattern because of these lines right here. I don't need another seam along there. What I did was I created a plain bag, and then I went into all my decorative fills and did the tops of each one. So I didn't have to redigitize the bag each time. So they will all have that step on here. But like I said, I'm going to forward it through that color on the machine. Now the next step it's going to do is I need to take the hoop back out of the machine and fold this under. So let's see if I can get that out of there without too much problems and getting in the way too bad. So I'm going to take my tape because I want to reuse it. I'll just stick it someplace where I can get at it. And I'm going to spray here a little bit. I'm going to move it away from my machine. I do not like spraying this close to my machine. I'm going to fold that down, smooth it. Now I am not going to put a piece in here, a piece of batting. I probably could, but I do believe it's going to be thick enough without that other piece in there. So I'm going to, and that'll be up to you, if how the, you know, after you've made a couple bags, you'll be able to tell how you want to do them. If you want them thicker or thinner, and then you will also be able to, you'll know by then after you've done your first bag if your embroidery foot is going to bypass that zipper okay without hitting it. So I have that all taped down. Now I'm going to flip the hoop back over to the other side. And this is a very important step. You need to open the zipper. Well, not yet. You don't need to open the zipper. You can if you want to, but you don't need to open the zipper until we put that top piece of fabric over there. And right now, what it's going to do is it's just going to tack that back piece down. So I'll hook this back in the machine and stitch that next step. And you can see it's not stitching exactly over that line, and it's probably because when I digitized it, I did have it exactly over that line. But because I put the batting under there, the batting fills up a little bit of space and pulls a little. But it will be okay when it's all done. None of these lines should show. Okay, so before I put the front on it, I always like to put a little tab on there. And you can see in this bag, the tab is because I'm going to give you some charm designs and key fobs. So if somebody wants to attach something, you have to do the tab. You have to sew the tab in that seam before you put the top on. Because if you forget, you're pretty much out of luck. And someplace I had a little yellow tab. So I guess I will shut the... So I couldn't find the little yellow tab, but I've got a blue one. That'll work just as good. And as you can see, I have a whole bunch of different size tabs because I have literally made hundreds of bags over the last few years. So whenever I have a scrap piece left, I always stick it in this bag, and then I pretty much don't have to make new ones. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut about a 2.5 inch piece off from here. I'm going to cut that little bad end off from there first. Then I will fold it in half, and I'm going to tape it over here out of the way. So first thing I will do is I will stitch the line, and that shows you where to put it, although it's hard to see because it's right over top of that yellow line. So I'm going to tape it over that placement line. I'm going to take this out of here because I want to get that on there straight. And then it will stitch that same line again so that you get to see my head again. I wanted to make sure the camera was on. Now see how my foot comes above that tab, and if it didn't come above that tab, I would have had to tape it here too. And you can see now that my foot is up, there's quite a bit of space there. And like I said, on some embroidery machines, this is not adjustable. Very rarely do I make a bag on my 6-needle machine because none of the 6 needles are the feet, or yeah, the embroidery foot is not adjustable. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the back of my bag. This is the back of my bag, and I'm going to lay it. Whoops, first thing I got to do, and this is important, is unzip this zipper, because if you don't unzip that zipper, it's going to be out of the seam line, and you will have to use your friendly little seam ripper to undo those stitches and do it over again. So once again, make sure your piece of fabric goes beyond this line and above this line. You can kind of equally center them. And if this was a bigger zipper pull, I would actually take a piece of tape and tape it down. I do have some zippers that have bigger zipper pulls, and sometimes this moves around and it'll get in the way of the stitch line, and that's not good news. And with zippers, the bags that I make, I always use a size 3 zipper. The size 5 zippers have the wider teeth, and I've tried them before, and it seems like I almost always break my needle, or it skips stitches when it goes over top of the zipper. So on these smaller bags, a size 3 zipper I feel is just fine. So once again, I'm just going to tape the 4 corners, I believe. You don't do anything on the back yet. Just leave the back. I probably could take this piece of tape. because that's been tacked down already. And maybe I'll put one more on there. Put the hoop back in the machine. And stitch the next step. Which actually is not in the right sequence on my machine. So I'm going to stop it and fix the sequence. Otherwise I'll forget, and all the designs on you guys' USB stick will be in the wrong sequence also. Okay, so I went into the software and I changed the sequence of the stitches and deleted one section. So now when you stitch this design out, instead of 10 colors, it will say 9 colors. So I believe that's all fixed. I will double check it with another bag just to make sure. So what's going to stitch now is it's going to stitch all the way around this. This is actually the back of the bag. You lay them right sides together. It's going to stitch all the way around at least twice. Now here's my zipper pull right here, right there, and hopefully it goes around it. See, mine bypassed it just fine. It's not above it, but the edge of my zipper foot, right, or my embroidery foot right there, just rode along the edge of that zipper pull. So this will stitch around at least twice, and then I will come back and show you the last. That did stitch around 2 times, and I made it so there's 2 separate lines there, so in case one would pull out, you have another set of security stitches, so to speak. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew the last lining onto the bag. So I'm going to remove these pieces of tape. And I am sticking them down on the edge of my machine here because I will reuse them. And I'm going to lay my right sides together this time so that this is the inside of the bag lining. I'm going to do the same with this piece as I did with the other piece. Make sure you come up above the zipper a little ways and that your fabric is beyond these 2 placement lines. And this one is way up here. I guess I wouldn't have had to cut my fabric quite that big. But I'd rather have too much fabric than not enough. So I'm going to tape the edges again. You don't want to spray it because you don't want your inside of your fabric. You don't want spray on the inside of the bag. So I'm going to flip it over and make sure that stayed together and those corners stayed flat. So I will hook it back onto the machine and sew the last step. I have to remember to keep that lid up. I'm using an external thread stand, which I always do, but when that lid is down, the thread likes to get caught in there, and I can understand why. So, stitch the last step, and it's going to stitch 3/4 of the way around. It's going to leave an opening. It's going to leave this whole bottom section open because I need to be able to turn the bag. And I believe I've made this stitch around twice also. So we will see. I'm going to wait until it comes to this zipper pull. You can see the indentation for that zipper pull, but if you notice, my Janome machine stitches over to the left side of that, in that foot. It doesn't stitch, there it goes by that foot, and it's fine. Mine doesn't stitch in the middle of the foot, but I know on the 550E it has a very small round, this foot. This is a pretty big oval. So I do believe on the 550 it would be okay, and it would bypass that stitch just fine. Now it's going around for the second time. It's finished stitching, and I took the hoop out of the machine, and now I'll show you how to trim it. So first thing I'm going to do is take my little magnets off. I like my GR hoop and my SQ22 hoop because I have these magnets. So that brings the stabilizer around the hoop, and it holds it nice and tight. So I'm just going to pop this out. Set my hoop aside. See how nice and big that hoop is? Hopefully you can see it when it's sitting down here. Maybe I'll push this machine back a little bit. And move this forward, or tip the camera a little bit more. There, that's pretty good. Okay, so I'll take my tape off. Once again, it's probably usable for 1 or 2 more times, as long as the edges don't fold in too bad. And these are folded in a little, and I don't know why I stuck it up there, because if I go to use it again, a hoop will be right there in that section. And you notice I have 2 pairs of scissors here. One pair is marked old, and then these are my good Fiskars titanium blade. So when I cut all of this thickness around here, I'm going to use my old scissors because it dulls it pretty fast. And you can see right here where the machine stitched through that tape. So I'm just going to check the needle, and it is not sticky, and it shouldn't be. I didn't figure it would be. And if it happens to be sticky, you need to put some rubbing alcohol on the tip of a Q-tip and rub the Q-tip up and down on your needle, and to take that sticky off of there. Otherwise, you will have a big mess. It will jam up underneath. It doesn't like sticky at all on the needle. Okay, so I think the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my old scissors, and I'm going to trim this zipper. Sometimes, like if I'm using a long zipper, like this one, and there was this much left of the zipper, I would use that on a little bag. I wouldn't throw that away. This obviously isn't long enough to use on anything. I wouldn't throw this away. I have extra zipper pulls, and they're real easy to put back on here. So then you get 2 zippers for the price of 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my seam ripper, or not my seam ripper, my rotary cutter, and I'm just going to, I don't want to run over that blade with my rotary cutter, or I don't want to run over the end of that zipper. I'm going to just clip off these big pieces. Same with here. I'm going to use my old scissors, and I'm going to cut that zipper. And the reason why I'm doing that, and I'm going to do it here too, is because I stitch these long pieces together and I use them. And I've told you that before. It's kind of a waste not to do that. And right here in this drawer, you probably can't see it, but anyway, the drawer right below where the camera is where I keep all my stabilizers, or stabilizer pieces. And you can see this one I've stitched together, and then I just put them back in the drawer, and I use them. Okay, so I'll do it on this last side, or these last two sides. Now here, I don't want to get too close because I need to leave quite a bit of thickness there. So I'll throw this away and put these in my drawer. Now I've got this trimmed, but not close enough. But I didn't want to waste that stabilizer. So you can see here, it left this opening, and that's where I would stitch it by hand. So what you want to do when you cut around the edge, just cut up. I don't know if I had that in the camera. Cut up to that point. Now these are the two pieces right here that you're going to stitch together. And this has to fold under, and this one goes over the top of it. So there's quite a bit of bulk here. So I'm going to cut a little bit of that bulk out, but make sure and don't cut this top layer of fabric. Now over here, it doesn't make any difference. But right here, it does make a difference because you're going to fold that under. So I'm going to trim that closer to the stitching line. And like I said, the reason why I'm leaving this piece of fabric is so that I can fold it under. Okay, throw these away. And now I'm just going to trim this probably, I don't know, 1/4 of an inch from where I stitched it. And you can see that's pretty thick. It dulls those scissors pretty fast. Now I'm going to turn it inside out. I'm going to turn the camera. See that I have turned it, and these are all the different tools that I have to turn. And actually this one is my favorite. This one is a little bit too pointed, and this one is okay too. But anyway, so I have to probably use a tool to turn it with. This bag is big, so it's not so hard to turn, but anything smaller than a 5x7 gets a little tricky. And here's where I said the reason why you leave these two is this is the only hand stitching that you have to do. You fold these two together and stitch across here, and then I'll turn it one more time. And this is where you noticed in the very, I think it was the second step, after I stitched the zipper in, how I flipped the hoop over and I trimmed that stabilizer out of there. If you would not have done that, you would have to trim it now, and it would be extremely hard. So I'm going to shut the video off while I hand stitch this, and then I'll come back and show you. Okay, you can see I quick whip stitched that together. Not the best job, but it doesn't show, and it definitely will stay. So now what you need to do is open your zipper the rest of the way. I'm going to trim that little piece of thread. Turn your bag out. Once again, this is a 6x10 bag. Actually 10 by 6, 10 inches wide by 6 inches. So it's pretty easy to turn. This is where I was talking. I didn't put a piece of the stabilizer back here because sometimes if it gets to be too thick, It sticks up a little bit and it gets caught in the zipper. Not always, but just depends on the bag and how well I digitized it. So there it is. I will add a key fob or a charm or something to it and show you what it looks like later.